If you're after a really simple, versatile, and amazing sounding clipper plugin, I got you. What's going on, guys? Matt, aka Martin here, back here with another video. Today, I've got a quick review for you all on one of my new favorite plugins by Joey Sturgis Tones called JST Clip. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I don't use a whole lot of third-party plugins in my projects, but after hearing the sound of this plugin, I knew that I had to try it out for myself. And oh my God. I've been playing around with it a fair bit over the past couple of weeks, and honestly, the versatility of this plugin is just amazing. So let's jump into Ableton Live, open it up, and have a quick look at what it can do. All right, so here I've just got a new basic project. I've just dragged a basic kind of preset drum loop into, and this drum loop sounds like this. And all I'm going to do is just load on JST Clip. So looking at the interface, you can see it's pretty simple. We've got a few basic controls. Over on the left, we've got a power button, just essentially a bypass for the plugin. Then we have a 2x control. We'll get to that in a second. This main knob in the middle, which is our input drive control, a trim control here, which is this little screw just there, and a mix knob, which is really useful as well. So this input knob in the center, by default goes from 0 to 12 decibels, I think. And if you double click on it, you can type in the amount manually. So I can type in 12. And then this ×2 switch here makes this input knob go up to 24. So it multiplies the input drive by 2. So let's just play this drum loop and start driving up this input drive and see what it sounds like. So that's at the full 12 of drive. What I'm going to do now is just turn it all the way down and turn on ×2 and then just drag it up again so you can hear what it sounds like with the full ×2 of input drive. It's going to start getting a little bit loud there, so I'm not going to push it the whole way, but you can see that it's really, really useful, right? And starts to sound awesome. And where it becomes really, really useful is when you start combining it with this trim knob and this mix control. So I can just like slam this and then just introduce a little bit of it through this mix control. Even just a few percent, bypass it. Starts to get really, really cool and get some really, really nice harmonics and great, great sound there. And of course, you can use the trim control to, if you introduce too much level, you can just back it off a little bit with the trim control. Now, obviously, this is pushing it a fair bit, but you can kind of get a gist for how the plugin works and see how everything sounds with just this simple little interface. So as you can see, even with just a few controls, you can get some really, really cool sounds out of this thing. And with that in mind, I've decided to put together a little project that basically pushes this thing to its absolute limits. So let's open that up right now and dive in. All right, so here we are inside of this little project that I've put together. And if I go through all of the tracks, look down here in the device view, and you'll see that pretty much every single track has an instance of JST Clip open up on it, except for maybe some of the hi-hats and rides and stuff like that. It's used a lot, and in some cases even on groups as well as on individual channels. So I've really tried to push this thing to its absolute limits and just see what it can do. First off, let's go through these tracks just from top to bottom. So I've got this drum group up here, which sounds like this all together in this drop section. Skip through it a little bit so we get some of the hi-hats and stuff coming in. So this is with JST Clip all on. So I've got an instance of JST Clip on the drum bus here, which is just introducing a tiny little bit using this mix control. I've got an instance of Clip on the kick here, again using the mix control to kind of mix it in. I'll show you what that sounds like. Turn it off. On. just pushing it a little bit there. Also on the snare, which sounds like this, and bypass it, turn it on, just adding a little bit of bite to it. And then of course we've got it in other places as well, like on this drum fill here, which this drum fill sounds like this. If I turn off JST Clip, back on, just using again this kind of mix knob to dial in the mix nearly 100% and just pushing it slightly. And then of course these are all running into that JST Clip on the drum bus as well. Then if we go to this synth, here's this little ARP sound that sounds like this. And I'm really using JST Clip here to introduce a load of distortion. So if I turn off JST Clip, you'll hear what this sounds like. Turn it back on. Basically using it as a distortion unit for this particular sound. Then I've got it on all of my basses on this bass group, just introducing a little bit of drive, just kind of slamming it into the clipper for the whole group. And then I've got it on these individual bass hits and pretty much all the bass sounds and everything as well. Then on this bass group, which again is just introducing a little bit of that drive, driving these two kind of wub bass sounds into it. And then on the individual wub basses as well as on the sub bass and the sub drop. And I'll solo the bass group so you can hear what this sounds like. Pretty cool. With this wub sound, we're actually driving it a fair bit. Let me open up this particular JST Clip on this first wub sound. And let me turn off the power. Back on. Again, using it to introduce a bunch of distortion like we were with the ARP sound. And then on this sub, it's making it sound pretty massive. So here's the sub just on its own with the JST Clip going. You might need some good speakers or headphones to hear that. And then let's turn off JST Clip. Back on. Just introducing some nice higher harmonics into the sound. So what I've gone ahead and done is actually mapped every instance of JST Clip in this session to a single key on my keyboard. And what I'm going to do is just play the drop and switch them all on and off so that you can hear the difference that they're making in this particular project. Now, it's been pretty overly exaggerated and a lot of the sounds have been made with the JST Clip in mind. So there might be some pretty drastic changes in some of the sounds, but the overall level actually will be louder, technically speaking, without the JST Clip on. So let me go ahead and I'm going to play it from the drop here. And I'm just going to start with JST Clip on and then turn it off and on, and you'll see on the screen what's happening. So you can hear it made a pretty big difference. And that was just using that JST Clip plugin. Again, it's across a bunch of different buses. It's on individual channels. It's pushing some really hard. It's just subtly introducing some clipping into others. And it's putting in a lot of work in this project. And lastly, just for a little bit of fun, I also threw a JST Clip onto the master track, which I've had turned off this whole time so that you don't hear the effects of it. And I've put it just before a limiter to see how far I can push it. So let me open up this instance of JST Clip here and turn it on. And as you can see, I've pushed up the drive a fair bit, kind of to the point where the mix is still listenable, but it's also really, really loud. And that point ended up being about 10 on this input drive control, 10.5. And we have 100% on the mix there and no trim. As I mentioned, I've got a limiter after this that is just making sure that we don't kind of clip too hard at the end, although of course this is a clip, so it's got a limiter kind of inbuilt into it, but I've just put one afterwards for good measure. And so what we'll do now is listen to the whole mix running through this instance of JST Clip that I've got on the master, and I'm also going to have Isotope's Insight open up so you can see just how loud this thing is getting. Bearing in mind, literally all I'm doing is just running it through this JST Clip, and then there's a limiter afterwards just to stop any kind of extraneous peaks from coming through. Forewarning, you may want to turn down your speakers or headphones. ridiculously loud, ridiculously awesome. So as you've just seen and heard, JST Clip is an incredibly versatile, well-rounded, and amazing sounding clip plugin that can be used for anything from subtle saturation to really, really aggressive distortion. If you want to pick it up and try it for yourself, I'll put a link in the description to the website where you can go and buy it for a really reasonable price, I might add. Also, if you want to download the song that I made in this video, you can do so for free by signing up to my mailing list, link down in the description as well. And I'll also make the project file available on my Patreon page to all of my patrons so you can take a deeper dive into the project if you want. Massive shout out to Joey Sturgis Tones for making this awesome plugin. It sounds awesome and I'm using it on pretty much all of my projects now. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, comment down below what you thought of it, and if you really enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe and hit that little bell notification icon so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video, and also make sure to follow me on all the usual places at Martel Music. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.